Hey everybody, and welcome back to Wolfpack Fishing. What I'm giving you today is a link to all of the state stocking data in Ohio back to 1970. If you'd like to stick around a little bit after I give that info and we can talk a little bit more about the stocking data and what it pertains to, stick around. If you just want a quick access to the link, go down to description. I'll have it there. Click on the link. The site's a little janky, but it's completely legit. Click on the link, give a little bit to upload, and then hit visualize. And then scroll over to the right, and it's going to give you an alphabetical order of all the lakes and rivers in Ohio with the state stocking data. And you can scroll up and down that. You can pick the year frame, species. I believe it starts out at just the last 5 years per lake. But it'll show you all the stocking data, and that's pretty dang helpful picking a place to fish or knowing what kind of fish are in the bodies of water around you or place you've been wanting to go to. So go check that out. You want to get a little bit more into it? Let's get into it. So, they stock all different kinds of things here in Ohio. They stock fry, fingerling, advanced fingerlings, and yearling. Fry, yeah, most of you know what fry are. They're as big as your pinky nail. They're just tiny little babies, fresh from the eggs. Very low survival rate. I mean, bluegills, crappies, suck them in. They stock a lot of fry in certain lakes. Let's take Berlin, for example. Berlin used to just get fry alternate years because it's one of the very few lakes in Ohio that walleye naturally reproduce at. So they just give it boosters. But due to how popular fishing's become, they started giving it increments of fingerlings also. So you want to get into fingerlings, they have a much higher survival rate. You want to talk about fingerling, look at your whole finger, and there's a fingerling. Why don't they stock certain species, walleye, saugeye, bigger than fingerling? Cost of raising them. I mean, fry, they cost nothing. I mean, what do they eat? Pond scum. Up to fingerling size, even saugeye, they can feed them pellets. And pellets, very affordable. Once they get bigger than that, you got to start feeding them live. And then look at the cost ratio, feeding pellets, feeding live. It's not financially appropriate there. So, and you got advanced fingerlings like musky, 8 to 10 inches. They raise those all the way to that size because they're an expensive fish to raise. I mean, by the time they put it in the lake, I believe it comes to like $9 a fish. So every little muskie, you're looking at $9 a fish. And muskie, one of the reasons they're so expensive is they have to feed them live. They feed a minnow, like you have the Ohio muskie clubs. They all chip in. I think they have like minnow tournaments or something like that to help buy the feed for the muskie versus like when the state, you'll see in the stocking data, if you go back several years, Ohio stocked exclusively tiger muskie for several years. Tiger muskie were much more affordable to raise because they could be raised off pellets. So, picture feeding a fish for a full year, picture feeding it minnows versus pellets. That's a lot of money. So now I don't think an 8 to 10 inch muskie is a full year, but you can see the difference. I mean, all the minnows it would take for it versus just pellets. But they quit stocking tiger muskie because tiger muskie don't quite attain the same size, full-grown adult size, as Ohio strain barred muskie, which is our native strain to the Ohio River drainage, which would have been the native muskie in Ohio, except for Lake Erie, which would have been spotted muskie. And we only have so many of those left due to habitat loss along the Lake Erie shoreline. And then you got yearlings, and yearlings are going to be your catfish and your trout, pretty much, your channel cats, your blue cats, which we started a blue cat stocking program in Ohio recently in a few lakes around me, which I'm really looking forward to. But like trout yearlings, when you look at the stocking data of trout at a lot of our lakes and ponds and streams, kind of take that with a grain of salt, because except for a few exemptions and a lot of them are privately owned spring creeks or a couple of the really deep lakes that are stocked like Punderson, most of those trout are going to be dead when the water starts warming up. The few that weren't caught, which are so easily caught, as you guys know, I mean, little 4-year-olds out there just slaying the trout, having a good time. But those fish are all dead by midsummer. Those little ponds and little rivers and canals are stocked into, they're not holding over. Lakes like Lake Hodgson and Ravenna, they used to stock, or Punderson, they'll hold over in those lakes. A few of them will, because they got the depth, pretty deep. Lakes stay pretty cold. So, and that's yearling. Another thing about the stocking data, when you look at the numbers, you got to evaluate at different lakes. You might look at it and say, wow, that's a lot of fish. How many acres is a lake? Looking at the stocking data, how many fingerlings per acre. And then you got to look at the forage for the lake. Is there enough forage in there to help them attain certain size? What's the fishing pressure like on that lake? Is there a ton of fishing pressure? Is everybody keeping the saw guys? Like West Branch, where I live, it gets stocked with a ton of musky, and there's a lot of musky in there. But it's a heavily pressured lake. And there's other lakes that are stocked with musky, not quite as many, but they're not as pressured as heavily. So the musky are going to get a little bigger because mortality rates, catch rates. I personally don't keep musky. I kept one small one years ago in February, an ice cold, mid 30-inch musky. I thought it was going to be the best opportunity to try one. Didn't care too much for it. So I'm just straight catch and release on those as a trophy fish, unless I get that 50-incher finally. Been trying for so long. I've caught a couple pretty close to it, but never measured them. I got a feeling, got a couple that were definitely high 40s, and I feel like when I hit that 50-inch mark, I'll know. But yeah, so with the stocking data also, you can look back and you'll see a lot of our lakes got northern pike in the beginning, or flatheads. And a lot of you guys that have fished all around Ohio, some of our reservoirs, a small population of pike stuck around. We're able to make it. We don't have a great pike fishery here in Ohio, but a few of our rivers got them. Like around me, the Cuyahoga's got a few. The Tuska's got a few. Nothing banging, but they hang on. On a good day, you can get a couple. Years ago, before they took down the Monroe Falls Dam, I caught, I think it was 7 pike and 3 or 5 largemouth in one day, and that was pretty good. That was a pretty good day. But I don't believe the pike are native to our rivers. I'm pretty much sure those would have been pike that made it down the Cuyahoga from being stocked in Ladue or East Branch Reservoir. Like if you were to catch a walleye in the Cuyahoga, which I only caught one of in my life, it probably made it all the way down from Ladue through Lake Rockwell. Got blown over a few dams and made it down to Akron. But in the flatheads, flatheads took off in some lakes they really didn't. So you'll see that on there. And then just because a fish was stocked in a lake, like let's say tiger muskie, for instance, that doesn't mean they're still going to be there. They don't reproduce, so they're not going to be there unless stocking efforts. Like saw guy, some lakes were stocked with saw guy and they quit doing that for various reasons. Wipers, stripers, those fish are not going to exist unless they're continually stocked, because they don't reproduce saw guy. I guess there's a little tiniest bit make it, but they're like donkeys. They're pretty much unsuccessful spawns. The steelhead, it'll show the steelhead on there. Numbers are great. It'll definitely give you some good ideas on the numbers in your bodies of water. Another thing too, is to remember, if those fish are stocked in the lake, the tailwaters below it are going to be absolutely loaded with the same fish. Especially, here's a little tip, especially after the fall drawdowns. That's one problem with our reservoirs in Ohio, is every fall we lose a lot of fish out of our lakes, because you think how much they drain those lakes down. And those lakes, they drain out through the bottom of the lake. You know, they open the chutes, they open the gates at different variables. And when they open those up full blast, that's just sucking fish out with the water. They're all flying out through the chutes. So every year, when they drain our lakes for that flood control, spring thaw, which we really don't get much anymore, but you got to picture all the fish getting sucked out with that water. So the lakes are losing that many fish every year, and the rivers are getting full of them. You take certain bodies of water, as you guys know, in southern Ohio, all of coming out of Alum Creek, coming out of Indian, all those rivers down there are just loaded with saugeye. Or take like more eastern Ohio, the Muskegum, Tuscaroras. Tuscaroras flows into the Muskegum, but that's loaded up with everything too, and they all make it down to the Ohio River. And the Ohio River's got a little bit of everything. Heck, if you look at one of my videos when I fished for the first time this year, guy got a brown trout there. And, brown trout are native to the Ohio. You could tell it was a stock fish by the fins, but, it's pretty cool. I guess that's about it with fish stocking data. So check it out. Check out the link. Like I said, it's a little janky, but figure it out. I haven't been fishing very much lately. Just so much work. It's a drag working. I got a few things I got to save up for. My boat, I don't even want to put my motor back in the shop again. I want to upgrade it for my little tin can. And I'm thinking about this winter putting a down payment. I've been looking at the ultimate boats for what I like to do, because I'm not a big Erie guy and I don't need to go fast. I want a boat I'm not afraid to beat around. I can take on, exotic camping trips and drag up on shore like I like to do. Maybe go on some solo camping trips. But I'm looking at a Lund SSV 18. I consider it to be, after all my research, the ultimate aluminum John boat. An 18-foot basic bones boat. Few little frills I want to add to it, but price point is right. And it takes up to a 60 horse, but I don't want that. I don't need that. That'll keep me off some of my favorite lakes that I like to go to, which are limited horsepower lakes. So anyways, blah, blah, blah. There's the fish stocking info. Hope you guys learned a little something. Any questions about it, feel free to leave in the comments. Otherwise, check the description and it'll be in there. Might get some fishing in this Sunday. Really hoping on it. Working only 60 a week is just horrible, but Wolfpack fishing out. Hope you guys get out on the water and you need it. I need it, and I'm not getting it enough. I can tell. I'll see you guys out there. Bye-bye.